Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. This is the Maple Ambassador Chat. My name is Brogan, and I am with Mike.
Hello.
And Nikolai.
Hello.
So, thank you all for joining us today. Today we'll be going through, hopefully, a grand tour of Maple itself. Introducing Nikolai first before we do that as well. So, thank you all for joining us in the intro, and hopefully this is going to be a great chat with everybody. I'm very excited for it. Yep. How are you guys feeling so far? How are you guys feeling?
I'm good. I'm looking forward. Do you want me to give you a rundown of what we're going to go through?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, we're going to introduce Nikolai. He's going to tell us a little bit about himself. Then he's going to tell us a little bit about his interaction with Maple Finance. Nikolai and Crypto Warehouse are both Maple ambassadors. That's something you need to know from the outset. So we can say, pretty much within reason, what we want. We don't have an official title within the company, so we can give price predictions and look at positives and negatives of the company and give you a whole balanced opinion of that. We're going to look at the Maple products, we're going to look at Syrup, the token, the Oracle is with us. He's going to give us the price predictions for that. And then we're going to look at some of the big players that are starting to use Maple Finance that we're going to mention throughout the show. And then at the end, we're going to have some price predictions. The Oracle's going to do the charts, and then we're going to finish off with where we see Maple Finance heading and where Nikolai thinks Maple Finance is heading in the very near future. So back to the Oracle. Do you want to get us underway and start asking Nikolai some questions?
Absolutely, yeah. So, obviously, like we just said, we're not going to Maple just yet. We do want to introduce our professional in the call today. So, first question for me, Nikolai. Could you give the viewers a little information about your background? How did you get involved with Maple Finance in the first place?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been in crypto for around 5 years now. So I started with mining ETH back in 2020. So this was back during the pandemic. So when everyone was inside, that's when I first got introduced into crypto. A good friend of mine, his name is Farside, he should be on right now, got me into mining. So this was when Ethereum was actually on the proof of work consensus mechanism. But then after we know what happened, they switched over to a proof of stake during Ethereum 2.0. So that's like my introduction into crypto, but specifically into Maple. It was 2 years ago. A professor of mine at the time got me into RWA, and I first started looking into a company called Goldfinch, but ultimately Goldfinch wasn't as good as Maple or as developed. So what got me into Maple obviously is the over collateralized lending aspect and how they cover losses through this over collateralized model. So by pitching more collateral than
the loan outstanding really opened my eyes, and that's when I started researching the white paper and reading everything and getting connected with the community. So I've been in the Telegram for probably, I'd like to say 2 years now. So that's like a little brief explanation of how I got started and exposed into Maple.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I think we'll move on to the front page of Maple now and give some overview of that. Let me just alt up this quickly. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, so this is Maple's homepage here. Obviously, we're split on to this. As we know, we'll go on to the pool section. Let me scroll through this quickly. Actually, should we just jump straight to the lending pool area?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about with regards to Maple. It has multiple different products, but the website's the best place to start. That's got at least 3 of the products. We are going to talk about Syrup USDC later on with Pendle. We're going to talk about that with Nikolai. But yeah, start off with the website. Start off showing the products that they offer through their website, the high yield product, the blue chip product, and just basically run us through which ones are available on there. Yeah. And then if Nikolai wants to add anything about them or you want to ask anything about them, fire away.
Yeah. Okay, so as you first learn to the pool section, we have 3 sections here. These 2 at the top, over collateralized lending, with these 2 products, corporate credit and real world assets. So the first 2 here, these are kind of the main meat ones here, with high yield secured lending and the blue chip secured lending. If we click onto this one, I believe I'll give some more overview of this.
One quick thing to point out about over-collateralization. That's a really important thing to understand about crypto loans and loans that are offered through Maple. What it means is that if they want to borrow, say, $10 million, they can't go to Maple with $10 million worth of assets. They have to over-collateralize the loan. So they have to give 15, 20, $25 million worth of assets secured against that loan. So over-collateralization is something that's massively important and something that they are really striving towards, the kind of like the blue tier excellence mark.
Absolutely.
So that's important to understand about the over-collateralization. I know sometimes some of the terminology with this can be quite difficult to understand or hard to understand. So if you've got any questions in chat, I know Kabir has said there's an echo on Nikolai's stream.
Right, okay. I can have a look on the audio.
Is there any of these products that stand out to you, Nikolai? Which is your favourite one of the products that they offer through their portal? Do you have a particular favourite?
In Maple Institutional, my favorite would definitely be the high yield secured. The reason why, because as a retail investor, obviously I'm not too stuck up upon like the safety. So for high yield, high net worth institutional investors, they tend to want to protect their principal rather than obviously leverage the yield. So with the blue chip, this is an amazing product for high net worths and institutionals, and the reason behind this is because the collateral that is eligible to be posted in a pool like the blue chip or only blue chip. So you can only post a BTC and ETH on this pool, and the reason why it's safe is because as we know, altcoins like we could say a Solana or like an XRP, these move more than obviously the BTC and ETH move. So by only accepting a BTC and ETH in the blue chip pool, it lowers the chance for like a potential liquidation or a margin call, let's say, and God forbid a default. Interesting thing though, we haven't seen a default ever since the switch from a V1 to V2. And for people who don't know what that switch was, Maple used to follow under collateralized lending. So this means that a borrower comes and says, "Hey Mike, I wanna borrow a 20 million USDC. I'm gonna put up less than the outstanding loan amount." So you could obviously see the problems with this in a volatile market. So after Maple switched over to over-collateralized lending, this was in 2023, we saw no defaults or anything of that nature. So the switch from under-collateralized lending to over-collateralized lending shows the team's innovation in the space. And a quick side story. Back in I think 22, whenever the FTX and Alameda was like a big thing, Alameda actually came over to Maple and said, "Can we lend with you?" And it's an interesting story actually. Maple, they underwrote the loan. So what that means is they looked at all their credit, looked at the balance sheets, looked at everything, and they ultimately didn't give Alameda the loan, even though Alameda was like a big name and like people like JP Morgan trusted Sam Bankman-Fried. And in hindsight, I mean, it was a good idea. It was a good choice by Sid and Joe to not actually give the loan to Alameda. But so what happened was that in Alameda's balance sheets, they had like FTT tokens, which was like 5 billion. And then they had some other, random coins. So then Maple figured, if Alameda goes down, if FTX goes down, those FTT tokens are going to be worth absolutely nothing. So they haircut those. They haircut like the low liquidity altcoins, and then Alameda had like 14 billion in liabilities. So at the end, they only had like 1 billion in like in cash. So Maple saw that this isn't a credit-worthy client, so they said screw off, and didn't and didn't give the loan. And then after that, Alameda started barking down their neck. But it shows how sharp the Maple team is. I visited Sid actually 2 weeks ago in Miami, and I talked with him. He's a very sharp cookie, I would say.
They are. They are. And the other thing to point out about Maple is, and a lot of people don't appreciate this, is that we see these FTX style collapses every 2, 3, 4 years in crypto, and we see also the impacts of 30-40% drawdowns on the value of Bitcoin and Ethereum and things like that. So when Maple goes through these events, they become battle hardened. When the good times come, they've seen through the January inauguration drop from 109,000 to 78,000 in Bitcoin, and they've had to put the procedures in place now to protect, as you said, they've had no defaults because they've been battle ready for it, because they've seen the likes of it in the past. So moving forward, they've already got the tools in place to contact the people that are lending on the platform. They've got all of those tools in place, and like you say, they've got experience of having dealt with these types of clients in the past. So from my point of view, the confidence I get is the fact that whereas Barclays or Santander or HSBC, they get one of these events every 14 or 15 years, maybe 20 years, whereas Maple gets one of these events every 3 or 4 years. And that mindset of it'll never happen that you see in Barclays and HSBC, that's always at the forefront of what companies like Maple try and do, is be prepared for Bitcoin crashing. If there is an invasion of Taiwan next week and the price of Bitcoin goes to $75,000, then Maple are prepared for that now, whereas that just makes them so much more prepared than people who just sit on their haunches and give loans out to everybody. So I have a lot of time for people like Sid and the guys there, because they just have an understanding of what can go wrong at any minute because they're in crypto.
Exactly. Especially working in debt capital markets as their first gig. So Sid used to work at a national Australian bank. So he used to work in debt capital markets, so kind of like what he's doing right now. So I think the experience at the bank is now transferring to Maple. So a little backstory about how Maple started. So Sid, which is the CEO for people who are new, into Maple. So Sid first worked at the National Australian Bank in something called a securitization. So this was like a debt capital market job. Anyways, so then after the bank, he left the bank, and when he left the bank, now he was on the side of the consumer and the client. So he saw how incredibly slow lending could be, from the outside, not working at the bank. So his second job was at a company called Angle Finance. So this is where he met his co-founder Joe. Joe Flanagan lives, I think, in San Francisco. But yeah, this is where he met his co-founder, and then they created some proof of concepts in order to expedite this lending system and this slow traditional lending system. Most of my family is in TradFi. I'm trying to get them into crypto. It's hard with the volatility, but they started creating a proof of concepts, and until they actually launched in 2019. So as I spoke before, in 2019, they followed an under collateralized lending model, soon switched to over collateralized lending. So back on to what Mike said. Yeah, the team has a ton of experience. They've been through the FTX events. They've been through the defaults, the margin calls, everything. They know how to handle their clients, handle everything good. They have the systems in place. Now it's just time to get the partnerships, get recognition, and platform.
So I had to mute the microphones as we're coming through, so appreciate that in the comments. I was just saying this is kind of the core team of Maple with these people here, and these are who they are, backed by here. So here's Sydney, Sid there, Joe Flanagan, Matt Collum, Ryan O'Shea here, and obviously what they look like. But I was just about to go on to say, as the conversation was going on, I was bringing up the Bitcoin yield page there, but I think we can probably move on to the next core topic, which is Maple X Pendle.
Yeah, we're going to get completely sidetracked. Right. You are here to keep us on track.
I want to sit. I just want to sit here as a pillar. I don't want to move. I just want to sit here as like a little pillar and keep it going. So anyway, let me bring up the next page here and move on from the sidebar.
So this is what's this? This is the Pendle.
Integration, the Maple integration with Pendle. So we have this little article here. I'll probably read a small part of it at the top, and then we can move on to the pages. So, SERP, this is back in October 2024. SERP is excited to announce that SERP USDC is now available on Pendle. The collaboration enables Pendle users to access SERP's unique yield source and a free X boost in drip rewards while leveraging the Pendle protocol to introduce new trading opportunities. So this is what you can benefit from. Fix yields on SERP USDC by holding the PT SERP USDC token to maturity, speculating on the yield of drips by trading the yield token YT SERP USDC token based upon the implied APY and their view of the value of drips. And lastly, the supply liquidity and benefit from potential trading fees and Pendle emissions. I think we should probably go on to Pendle now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bring that up, then we can ask the questions and then continue onwards.
Now this is Nikolai's section, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I don't want to take too much of this. I just want to bring up the page, ask, and then let it go. So here's the page here. You can see these are some percentages here with the YT SERP USDC, the PT as well. So these two tokens, and then this pool here. So I think I should just ask the question here. First one, how little can people invest into this on Pendle? So to actually get some value out of this, how can people get started with as little as possible?
Yeah. So Pendle is a yield trading marketplace. So for people who don't know about Pendle, and I heard you read a 3x multiplier on drips. I think now it's actually a 5x. So even better. So Pendle is a yield trading marketplace. So people can come onto Pendle and deposit a USD, a C, or even mint PT and YT tokens. So a PT token is a principal token. So the principal token, it symbolizes, a fixed income, a fixed yield product. So what people can do, they could come onto Pendle and say, I think the yield of a SERP USDC is gonna drop to, let's say, 5% in the next 2 months, right? They could mint a PT token or buy a PT token to lock in the current 7% APY that we see right now. So they could lock that in and say in 2 months, the yield of SERP USDC actually drops to 5%. They're still earning that a 7% APY that they locked in when they did. So that's what a PT token is, and this integration into Pendle gives SERP USDC a whole new market, right? Instead of going along with the dips and the upcomes, you could lock in this fixed APY to hedge against obvious market volatility that we've seen in the past couple of weeks. Going on to YT token means a yield token. So opposed to a PT token, a YT token, it fluctuates with the market. So you could come onto Pendle deposit a USDC and convert that USDC into a YT token. So you could buy a YT token, and what that is basically saying, Mike comes to Pendle, Mike buys a YT token. Mike is saying, in the next 2 months, I think that a Syrup USDC is going to start yielding 10%. So it's going to go up 3%. So by buying a PT, by buying a YT at the current 7%, you're speculating that the yield is going to go higher. So think of YT as, a speculative stock per se, and you think that the yield is going to go up. So Pendle is just, a yield trading marketplace, and it opens a whole new market to Syrup USDC and a whole much broader exposure to the yield area. And then going on to Drips. So Drips is Syrup USDC's a rewards program for early depositors or early investors. So Syrup was launched 9 months ago. A Syrup USDC is the LP token when you deposit a USDC into the Syrup pools. So what happens is you go to syrup.fi and you deposit, let's say, $1,000 into the pool. So now your $1,000, it goes through what's called the Syrup router, and through the Syrup router, it gets funneled into a variety of Maple pools. So these pools are similar to high yield, but they aren't high yield, but they're quite similar. So you gain yield from Maple lending out your money to high net worths and institutions. So now Drips. So when you deposit, you get a drip multiplier. So you can lock up your USDC for a month, 2 months, up to 6 months. And then if you lock it up for a higher amount of time, you obviously get more drips. So on Pendle, you get a 5x drip multiplier. So what are drips exactly? So drips are for early depositors, as I said. So eventually the drip rewards are going to stop. So you should probably deposit soon so you could, capitalize on these drips. But what drips are is when you deposit, you earn yield in a USDC. And then you also, on top of that, earn drips. So drips are a rewards program, and you can claim those drips for Syrup tokens in the future. So there's something called a drip season, and there's a certain dates and windows that you're able to claim these drips for actual Syrup tokens. So on Pendle, by using Pendle, you could earn a 5x rather than if you just go straight into syrup.fi and you deposit there. The most you could get for a 6-month commitment is only 3x. So you could see how Pendle leverages, their place into giving you more drips. And obviously that goes back to the question. Pendle offers more yield because of this 5x drip multiplier rather than like a 3x on the actual Syrup website.
Right. Okay.
I've just two things, just so everybody is aware. So Syrup USDC, you go on and you deposit your $1,000 onto Maple, for example, at SyrupFi, and you get your $1,000 worth of Syrup USDC. Now that's a yield-bearing stablecoin, isn't it?
Yes. Correct.
Just so everybody in chat's aware. So if you didn't do anything, the value of that would go up over time.
Mike, I think we lost you.
Oh, sorry. That would go up in value over time. So, for example, if you just... What I was going to talk about next was, as well as having Pendle, where you can get the drips multiplier, which can then be converted into Syrup at a future date, you could, for example, with BitGet Wallet, for example, announced today, they've got their 20% promotion for the next 2 weeks, where you get the 10% AP APR on the Syrup USDC, but you also get 10% in Syrup tokens back as well. So Pendle is one way for you to make money out of Syrup USDC, but there are other places you could get that from as well, such as the BitGet wallet. And I think I love Pendle. I think it's a great place for people to earn massive amounts of yield, and you can bet against the future yields. You can trade off yield today based against future yields. I like all of that, but from Maple's point of view, Maple Finance's point of view, with Syrup DC, where I think the beauty is that irrespective of whether you use it with Pendle or BitGet or you just hold it in your wallet, it's always going to be growing in value because it's always being used to generate yield.
Yeah.
So, I love Pendle, and I love everything. I love all of the different ways that you can use it. So it's like a utility token wrapped up in a yield-bearing stablecoin, because you can use it in multiple places. And there's probably going to be, and I'm not second guessing Maple here, but I imagine there's going to be a few more ways coming along in the future where you'll be able to earn maybe not the same yield that you get from Pendle, but maybe a simpler way to earn a yield where you can just say, you know what, I'm going to go and get $1,000 worth of Syrup USDC, and I'm just going to stick it there and leave it, and I'm going to earn my 10% or 8%, whatever it is, and I'm going to get my reward tokens. In this case, it's the drips. In another case, it might be a different token. I know Solana has a lot of things going on there where you earn Meteora points and things like that. So I think what I like about Pendle is it shows the potential of what you can do with Syrup USDC.
Yeah. Adding on to your point that Syrup USDC is now acting as like a utility token per se, you could now use a Syrup USDC as a collateral on the Morpho market. So you could get a loan while pledging a yield-bearing stablecoin. So you could earn while actually getting loans from Morpho. So it shows that Syrup USDC is going in a way where it could be used for other things rather than just locking it up and like holding it and generate yield. The yield's great, but it'll be nice to lock up as a collateral or some other utility. I think today there was something I can't remember the name. There's something on Twitter where you could buy stuff on this crypto marketplace, and then they give you a syrup or something, or you buy with syrup. I still need to read it.
That came out about an hour before we went live. So I'm going to go look at it. I've got a question for you, I've got a question for all of us. Somebody in chat has asked, what is going to happen to the MPL that are in the wallet if they don't exchange for Syrup? Sorry if the question's already been answered. As far as I'm aware, the deadline is the 30th of April for them to be exchanged from MPL into Syrup. Is that right?
Yeah. So the deadline is April 30th. So I recommend you to convert before that. So you can go to syrup.fi/convert. And it takes literally like 5 minutes. I've done it, and I've done it for friends. So yeah, April 30th will be the last date in order to convert. If you hold it on Coinbase, I think they're delisting it soon, or it's already delisted. But yeah, what will happen to the tokens if you don't convert? So ultimately, they will lose all value. So your funds would, be eradicated from the market unless you convert. And then the tokens that aren't converted, it's going to be held a vote in governance. So one, it's either going to be burned, or two, it's going to fuel the treasury and the protocol growth. So this is going to be held on a vote on snapshots. So only staked Syrup holders are able to vote. So this vote should be going out after April 30th. So I predict like first week of May. But it's either going to be that, it's either going to be a burn, a treasury allocation, or a mix of both, maybe a 50 this and 50 that.
Yeah. All right. Well, what I've done is I've pasted the link to the conversion page into YouTube chat. So if you go there, you'll be able to convert your MPL into syrup. Now, I think we're going to be pressed for time. So the Oracle.
Yeah. Well, we've wrapped up the entirety of that area in a nice little package there.
By the way, I was about to say that was
very nice,
incredibly well presented.
And that's one of the best parts. Is I don't want to orchestrate every single question. It's better when the person who's supposed to be answering the question actually answers it in their own nice flow. So thank you for answering everything in one go. But I will move on to the next section, which is Maple benefits. If we move it onto now, let me just paste the new link for the screen. I have probably some Cloudflare block on the page, so I can ask the question, but I can't bring the page up.
What was the page that you're trying to bring up?
The June page.
To
show all the values, but I can't. I'll try and sort it out as we ask the question. I'll pose the question and I'll try and get the values sorted. Where do we see the Maple Finance TVL by the end of 2025?
Is that a general question?
That's an open question. I will try to get the page fixed.
I will give you my very quick answer.
Okay.
Because I look at this chart every week and obviously listen to what's coming out of the team. I've got two targets.
Yeah.
I think that by the summer we will be at 2 billion. We're at 1 point, just so everybody knows, the Maple Finance ecosystem is currently standing at just under $1.2 billion. And that has risen dramatically since the start of the year. It's gone up about $400 or $500 million. I think we are looking at $2 billion by maybe July. So maybe the beginning of the second half of the year. And then by the end of the year, with the appreciation in value of Bitcoin and everything else, I think we're going to hit 4 billion by the end of the year. That's my short answer because I know we're going to be pressed for time. So I will let Nikolai give his predictions then. So 2 billion halfway through the year, 4 billion by the end of the year. That's my prediction, Nikolai.
Yeah. I really like your prediction. Joe, the co-founder, he predicted that we can get to 4 billion by the end of the year. We're already standing at 1.2 bill at the start of Q2. So I know, yeah. So it's amazing how much we've grown from back in 2023 to now. In 2023, we're at like 20 mil TVL after the bear market and after FTX and all that. So now we're standing at 1.2 at the start of Q2. So I think we could easily get a 4 billion by the end of the year, if not more. If the partnerships keep coming and the allocations keep coming, we could definitely surpass that. We saw a Bitwise allocation. We don't know how much for, but if you do your research around the same time period, the TVL, got jacked up like 200 mil. So one could only speculate how much that allocation was. But if we see more allocations from maybe TradFi or more crypto native institutions, we could easily surpass a 4 billion TVL. But yeah, I mean, the partnerships are great. Everything's great with Maple.
Just one other thing. Somebody asked in the chat, they bought Syrup token on an exchange. What can they do to benefit from those tokens? I've pasted the link into the YouTube chat to take you to SyrupFi/stake. You can go over there, you can stake the tokens, and I believe you're getting about 3.5% at the minute on those tokens. So you can go and stake them directly on Maple's Syrup website, or depending on which exchange you bought them on, you can get a return through an exchange. Unfortunately, that exchange isn't Binance, so I can't say the name of them. But I will type that name into chat so you know where I'm talking about. Anyway, so 4 billion plus from Nikolai, 4 billion from me. Oracle.
Yes, I will completely agree with this board. I think obviously, as mentioned, in terms of the adding on to functionality and or, like we said, things being applied to Maple as we go along. We can't just use value we have right now to kind of forecast as it's currently changing, continuously throughout this period. So I do think talking about the idea of having this 4 billion value by the end of the year, again, completely agreeing with the idea that we could definitely surpass that by the end of the year due to not externalities per se, but things which add on to Maple as a whole. So yeah, but anyway, I completely agree with both of the values.
Right.
Moving on, but within this sector as well, we have another part which is security, which I do have the article for. So I will read a bit of this page and then ask the question, and then we can continue from there. Yeah. But I think we've got about 20 minutes. So again, I will go quite fast through this to make sure we can answer all the questions. So this is their security sector. And the question is, obviously, I will go through this before we answer this, but to say for people watching before we get onto it, is how important security is for Maple and its users, which is quite a big question, obviously, is very, very important. But anyway, quickly go through what they do to actually provide security and safety for their users. So we have audits, and these are evident external parties which go through. Let me make sure the audio is on. Yeah, okay. External parties which go through the security of Maple and make sure that their systems, not only on front end but back end and how it interacts with the blockchain, is actually secure and correct. So obviously we have a history of this going through. Bunch in 2023, December 2022, obviously some in 2024 as well, and then we have some kind of functions they have. So they have bug bounty systems, which are very important, and I think these get overlooked quite often. Again, most companies have bug bounty systems, but it's only a select few, and a lot of them kind of forego this idea. And I think this is quite a valuable. Again, they have other systems below here, which we'll get into in a second. But I think I do really want to point out on bug bounty, even though it's not a very massive sector for security. I do think the companies which do have these, which are the majority big companies which have bug bounty systems, I think are very valuable, as it gives obviously the idea is it gives a reward incentive for people who try and kind of pen test these websites, obviously in Maple this case, to try and find these vulnerabilities instead of abusing them, supply the information to obviously Maple themselves so they can go ahead and fix it and they'll get reward. So it's kind of a win on both ends, because security, the aim for security is to make sure it's protected against bad actors. And if bad actors are then given a system and a route to then, have a beneficial system where they can benefit from trying to break, Maple and break in and benefit from breaking it rather than, supplying it and helping. Yeah. This gives them a reason to actually do the opposite of what they would do, which I definitely think bug bounties are huge, and they have their own system here, as you can see with these links. To quickly go through the rest of it though, critical monitoring. Maple Finance makes use of a custom smart contract to check invariance on-chain, using data from both smart contracts and subgraph to assert invariance on a loan, pool, and LP levels. Huge there as well. Another one I do want to point out as well. Obviously, they have something very similar to critical monitoring. They have emergency pause function as well. I've heard about. There are not too many of these, but I have heard about these before. In the idea of having a protocol pause, which can disable the majority of function within Maple if there is something they are aware of, which is obviously incorrect or wrong. They can pause it themselves if it has got to the point where it's actually being executed. And then some other things down here. But the main things I did want to point out were this pause function, the monitoring, and the bug bounty. And then there is obviously historical audits they have if you do want to go check those out if you are unsure about the security of Maple. But to actually ask the question now and to ask it again, open question again, how important is security to Maple and its users?
I went first last time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can go first this time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. A security to Maple is, a top thing. When you're dealing with, multi-hundreds of millions of dollars, a security is a top thing. So when using a Maple, or when anyone uses Maple, there are always two risks, right? There's a default risk, which I talked about before, in which they haven't seen a default since 2023. And then there's a smart contract risk. So smart contract risk is a risk of the code. So let's say, the coder of the smart contract wasn't having a good day and he made some mistakes, right? So that's what these audits are for. So auditing companies can come and, audit the smart contracts or whatever, because if there is a something wrong in the smart contract. A bad actor could try to manipulate the contract and potentially take the funds or do something like that. So that's why auditing is so important. Auditing the code in order to see that everything is squared away, everything looks clean. There's no errors in the code or anything like that. So when you're dealing with a lending protocol like Maple, there's always two risks: a smart contract risk and defaults.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is very simple: is that you can chase the highest yields possible, and that's fantastic. But 100% of zero is still zero, and what you need to look at is the way that a company looks after its security tells you everything you need to know about a company. And I'm going to keep it short because we're running out of time, and this is the Oracle's area of expertise. Very simply put, this is the most boring element of any company. That's the security element of the company. It's the most boring element until it becomes the most critical element of a company. And if that company doesn't carry out the audits, if it has, as Nikolai just said, a bad day off, then your money's gone. We just have to look, we can't mention names, we just have to look at what happened a few months ago to see $1.4 billion disappear. Okay? If you think the Lazarus Group are out here looking for vulnerabilities in just exchanges, you've got a different outlook than I have. They're going after every financial product. They're going after Pendle, they're going after Maple, they're going after all the exchanges. Security is the most important element of any financial company. And I'm going to stop there because I know you want to say your bit, so I will stop.
Right. I think, again, I think some obviously very good points have been made in terms, especially with the idea of with the product of Maple itself. I think it's definitely any security vulnerability which can be executed to steal money is, again, always going to be important. But I think with Maple it's especially important due to the infrastructure which is kind of ran upon. I think there is a lot more potential for there to be a big issue with them. I think there's certain projects where there's a lot of not peer-to-peer per se, but a lot of smaller transactions and smaller things which go on within their system, rather than being one larger kind of pool and big things happening in one go. And I think obviously for them, again, it's still a security vulnerability and people's money can still be stolen. But I think with Maple, it's especially important as there are definitely big areas where there can be things which go wrong, whether it may be small or big, which can have a bigger impact than some. So I think, again, the question how important it is, I think for Maple is even more important. But again, not saying, they're not doing it properly. They are definitely doing it in a very good manner too. So even though, saying that there are areas which could have massive impacts if there was a security vulnerability, they are still managing it very well. I think, like I said, my point earlier was with bug bounty schemes, there are still people who would try and abuse these systems, but I think it definitely catches quite a lot of the, catch-all case. It catches quite a lot of them in terms of there being a reward for doing the right thing, because again, there's no reward if there's no bug bounty system. There's no reward for doing the right thing. But anyway, that's my point. Again, I don't want to yap too much. I do want to move on to the next point, which is whale. I believe that's the last question. Whale earning now. Let me bring the article up and then we can go through them.
Is the two now? Are we going to talk about Spark and Bitwise?
Yes, we are. I will go through quickly again. Obviously, I'm not going to try and spend too much time on any charts. I'll try and give my opinion quite quickly.
If we overrun by 5 or 10 minutes,
it won't be that bad.
I'm sure we can put 10p in the meter.
Yeah, exactly. I'll read through the starting paragraphs of both of these and then I can ask the question. So, Bitwise makes first institutional DeFi allocation via Maple. Bitwise makes same thing, by the way. Signaling a new era of on-chain credit. With over $12 billion in client assets, Bitwise partners with Maple Finance to access yield-generating institutional-grade on-chain credit markets. Maple Finance announces today that their Bitwise Asset Management, a premier crypto specialist asset manager with over $12 billion in client assets, has made its first institutional allocation, leveraging DeFi through Maple, a significant milestone in the adoption of on-chain credit by institutional allocators. This marks a pivotal step as institutional capital increasingly seeks structured, transparent, and yield-generating opportunities within the digital asset space. I think what we could probably do, that kind of gives the main idea of what it is. I think I'm going to move on to the next one just to give the other paragraph, and then we can ask the question and obviously move on. So this is Spark. Spark integrates with Maple and allocates initial $50 million. So really quickly, Maple Finance, the leading on-chain asset manager, received a $50 million initial allocation from Spark. The capital was deployed into SERP USDC, as we talked about, liquid yielding dollar, whatever. The decision to integrate with Maple followed a rigorous multi-month risk management conducted by independent third parties, as we looked at there. With these people there. Scroll down a bit more so you can get some information. The $50 million deployment happened last week, and the USDC was swiftly issued out in institutional loans by the Maple team, growing Maple's TVL to over $900 million. SERP USDC is now part of the backing of USDs and is contributing its yield to the Spark savings rate. Okay, a lot of words there. Just wanted to run it all down before we go on to the open question. Bring the camera up, which is, what does this mean for Maple's reputation with all these big players getting involved? Obviously, that's not the question.
Who's going to answer this question first? Myself or Nikolai?
Should you bounce it forward? I think maybe you should go first and then.
Okay. I make a lot of videos about Maple Finance, but in one of the videos I made last week, I talked about dipping toes. Okay, I like my analogies. When you have Spark, isn't it?
Yeah, Spark.
Spark and Bitwise, multi-billion-dollar companies who want to basically test the water with the likes of Maple Finance. Okay, if you want to go to, you want to see how they operate, see how they work, and I believe that $50, $100, $200 million deposited with Maple is to see how Maple performs. It's a trial. They are testing Maple. That's my first point. My second point and my last point, because I'm going to keep it quick, is that Nikolai has FOMO, I have FOMO, and the Oracle has FOMO, but so do very large institutional players. They have FOMO, and Bitwise's competitors and Spark's competitors will be looking at this very, very closely, because the next move by Spark or Bitwise, maybe another 100 million or 150 million here, is going to lead to 2, 3, 4 more of their competitors also approaching Maple. Why wouldn't you want 10% yield or 8% yield for your client base? Of course you would. So I think this is a test the water, and I think the entire industry is watching how Maple is going to perform working with these two companies. So I think this is a massive test, and I think they're going to pass it with flying colours. And I think in 6 months' time, as Nikolai alluded to before, with the $4 billion TVL by the end of the year, I think that could be blown out the water. We could be looking at 6. All depends on the next few months, which I think myself are going to go very well. That's me done.
I think these allocations and these crypto asset manager partnerships, it ultimately increases investor confidence and people who want to deposit into pools like Syrup or the blue chip or the high yield. So I think overall it brings investor confidence. Adding on to you, Mike, I look at it as like a nuclear reaction, right? You see, one institution starting to allocate, and then another one joins, and another one joins, and then it starts a chain reaction, the atoms clashing between each other until we see, that explosion in the upside. So in the community, a lot of people are saying, TVL and price aren't correlating. Why is this? Well, I think once we see, that it be okay, because in crypto, it just takes that one partnership, that one institution to send us flying. We saw with Ondo, all it took was BlackRock to send it flying. Now we have a higher TVL than Ondo, but like a 30x less FDV, if not more. So it just takes that one institution, to bring us up here. And then what I do love about Bitwise, Jeff Park is great friends with the team. So with Sid and Joe, Jeff Park was ex Morgan Stanley. So Jeff has a ton of connections to Morgan Stanley executives and so forth. Jeff Park also went to Stanford, just 40 minutes away where I am right now. But Jeff is highly connected. the Maple team is highly connected. So, I could only imagine, the next partnerships. Is it Morgan Stanley? Is it Goldman Sachs? The sky's the limit.
I forgot to unmute the mic. I need to unmute them because there's no echo. Anyway, what I will say is I completely agree. It's definitely this big bridge between both sectors, whether it be crypto or slightly outside of crypto, just finance. I think both parties can get involved nicely. And I do think it is a no-brainer for big actors to get involved with Maple. And again, the idea of nuclear reactor or snowball effect, I do think you'll get bigger and bigger people getting involved. Anyway, to move on quickly, now it is the charts. So
this is so just so we clarify with the charts.
Yeah.
Are we all going to get to say where we think the price is going to be?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm gonna give my opinion. Again, this is all opinion. I'll give my opinion. It'll be really quick. There's going to be two kind of main ideas. Let me bring it up quickly actually as well. There's going to be two main ideas with this, and then obviously everyone can give their price predictions or whatnot. I'm going to go super fast on this.
Not financial advice.
It's not financial advice. Again, what I'm going to be saying is fundamentally going to be something which is not going to be something you can just completely follow along with. So I've made two main kind of profiles of ideas with this. One being the short term and one being obviously the longer term. I think for long term with SERP, to preface before we get into these prices, it's definitely going to be going upwards. And I think my main kind of prices and talk is going to be on the upside for the longer term. I think that's kind of a no-brainer. I think we will eventually surpass these prices, and I think it's definitely a special case in terms of the SERP token, as it is a coin which definitely can change completely as we continue to go in the future in terms of its price action, as there are fundamental things outside of the charts. You can't just always look at the charts when it comes to certain things. I do think Maple is no different, as there are things they do outside of the charts which can cause the price to go up. So this is definitely going to be a heavy opinion, as this can definitely change. I think we are coming to a point where we are seeing quite high resistance. I think there has been very large consistency coming from basically December 2024 of this price point within this kind of 19-cent range being massive resistance. Again, we saw about 25th of December, about 17, 18 cents. This wick here, 19 and a quarter, 19 and a half. We are coming to this area again. We see this multiple times. Again, we're on the 4 hour here. Quickly looking at the lower time frame before we go into some high price predictions. We're coming from a position of good support here. Again, if we look at this line, this purple line is one of the ranges upwards. Again, this is the main area we are seeing right now, in between about 13.7 cents and about 19 cents. So we're kind of in a good range here. We're on the upper end, I will say that. I do think we are seeing a bit of resistance here. Again, to reiterate the point that we've seen this price multiple times before and have come down from this price multiple times before. Again, if we can see by this thinner and weaker area, this massive one for this equilibrium down here. Again, a main area we've seen multiple times over of support, majoritively on the upper end, in between 11 cents and 12.9, multiple times over, seen support here and come back upwards. So to establish the main range we've seen so far, it's going to be between about 18.5 cents to about 11 cents down here. So again, to kind of, start to actually give some opinion here, as you can see on the screen, I do think we are on the upper end of things. I do think we can come down. To look at the market structure as we are moving, obviously not too much TA here. We've come from this gap candle down here. We saw some liquidity down here, which then brought us right back upwards to the support point, and then brought us back upwards, surpassing this high point, and now we're on the upper end. I don't think this is going to be something which we're going to keep along with. I don't know if we're going to be breaking right now. Again, like I said, in the intro-ish of this kind of section, there can be things outside of the charts which could heavily change this opinion. So as I see it right now, I do think we will see some resistance at about 18.5 cents here and start to break down back towards about 15 cents. Now, to quickly move on to the higher time frame, I do want to give these 3 price predictions up here, which are going to be the more fundamental prices. Again, this is kind of the market structure I had. We don't necessarily have to have this short here. Again, none of it's financial advice. But looking at the rough structure, I did think we were going to be in this kind of downtrend. However, I do want to give some higher price points, as I do think fundamentally syrup will be going upwards in the future. So for me, we have these 3 prices. I think this 29 cent is definitely a high one. And again, this is going to be something which is going to happen a lot longer in the future. I do think we could definitely revisit the 25.5 cent area here. I do think 21.8 cents is something we can easily see in the future. But I think for me, one of my main prices in this kind of this scope in between coming in towards midpoint of 20, whenever it is within 2025. I don't think it's a 4-year prediction. I think it's relatively closer. It is going to be about 25.5 cents for me. It's going to be one of my bigger prices on the upper end. But I'm going to quit it there. I'm going to leave it to you guys now to give, if you want to give some price predictions or any opinion. No. If you don't have it, you don't have to give anything. But if you do, then
I'll let Nikolai go first, because I have a tweet that I made about this. So I'll let Nikolai go next, and then I'll go out a couple of numbers from my tweet.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Long-term price prediction and end of cycle, I think we could easily get to like 1 bill FDV. I know Mike might have some other opinions, but I think 1 bill is pretty reasonable, and the reason why I say that is because projections by 2030 are that the RWA space is going to be $16 trillion. So why can't Maple reach a $1 billion valuation by the end of 2025? I don't see why not. If Bitcoin does reach 200K, I could see like an ETH at a 10K. So with that, as we know, alt and BTC and ETH, the prices are all correlated. So as BTC goes up, ETH goes up, Solana goes up, XRP, and then down the list over to syrup. So a syrup, $1 easy, $1.50 easy. I know Mike might have some other opinions, but it honestly it depends on the macro perspective. I had a debate with Mike on X regarding tariffs, so it honestly it depends on that. We're seeing tariffs are starting to go back. China's making deals. So I don't know. It depends on Trump, his administration, and how the macro landscape turns like.
I'm going to give you a rough target of $1. Let's say $1 by the end of this bull run. That's roughly where I think $1.10 I think is where you're aiming at. So I'm going to put my Mystic Mike hat on, because I did a tweet 6 days ago which said that if we break 16 cents, we are going to be able to have a look at attacking 18 cents. And as the Oracle has just shown you on the chart, we are attacking 18 cents. So leave the tips at the door on the way out. Where I think we're going to go, I am massively bullish. And I think we have 3 scenarios. And I'm going to be quick. Scenario 1 is, I think by the summer we are going to be at the 26 to 29 cent range, which I know the Oracle has got as one of his targets. So I agree with that. The 3 scenarios for the end of this bull run: 60 cents, and that's with not really much more action from where we are now, with appreciation in the value of Bitcoin and Ethereum. As you said, maybe Ethereum going somewhere north of $6,000 to $10,000, Bitcoin going north of $150,000 to $200,000. I think if no more money comes through the door, 60 cents. If money comes through the door and we hit 4 billion in TVL, I think we're going to smash $1 billion in FDV, which would put us at the price you're talking about. If we do what I think the guys are going to do there and absolutely blow all of these targets out the water, I think we are going to go somewhere near $2. So I am, believe it or not, I am actually incredibly bullish, because the end of a bull run, the prices always go up more than you ever expect on tokens that have good fundamentals. The same way that prices when they're down 90%, everybody says this is the bottom, they'll go down another 90%. So I think a blow-off top will push us towards $2, but I think a solid target for the end of this bull run is $1. So I'm in agreement with you, and I'm in agreement with the Oracle. And we have one question to ask you, which isn't related to the price action, but I think we've got some good prices for the people in chat. So basically, we're looking at about a 7x from where we are now, roughly, for everybody in chat. But the question I've got for you, and I don't know if you can answer this, it's from Kishan. Will they face any KYC issues if they come from India? And I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm not sure.
The restricted areas are restricted to the U.S., Afghanistan, Iran, and a few other countries in that region. India, I'm not so sure. We're gonna have to look on the white paper. All the restricted countries are there. So if you want to open that up, I'm glad to answer your question. But if you're in the U.S., it's restricted in the U.S. So if you come from India and you're currently in the U.S., you can't unless you use like a virtual private network or anything like that. But I'm not advocating any of that. But that's always an option. I have a lot of friends in the Telegram who use VPNs and so forth. Yeah, another thing, a syrup, a syrup.fi, in order to deposit it and get syrup USDC, you don't need any KYC. So that's called a permissionless a lending protocol. So that was the whole point, to make it completely permissionless. So you don't even need KYC, but in order to access it, you can't be in a restricted region. So if you're in the US or Afghanistan, then you would need, a virtual private network.
In a circle on Telegram. So I will find out, Kishan, and I will paste a definitive answer in the OG Telegram group probably tomorrow when we find out. Now, what do we have left, Oracle?
We have final 3 questions, one for each.
Oh, final 3 questions. Perfect.
So I'll probably ask Nikolai first. Your question is, why are you bullish on Maple products as a whole?
Yeah, definitely. I'm bullish mainly on the innovation and the speed, the sheer speed that they deliver these products. So if you guys remember, like a few months ago, they delivered a product called Lend Plus Long, and Lend Plus Long was a product in which lenders would lend their money and gain yield, and then that yield is then reinvested into a Bitcoin call option. So if Bitcoin would go to like 130K, you would make a 33% on your lending, incentives. And so what really, made this product innovative is that all the principal, all the initial investment that you invested into the pool, it's all safe because that is never reinvested out. So if people are thinking that's reinvested, that's never reinvested out. It's only the yield that you generate is then used to buy Bitcoin call options. So if you make like a 4% yield on, let's say you make a 10% yield on $1,000, that's $100. That would be then reinvested into Bitcoin call options. So that's an example of an innovative, idea that they implemented. And then currently, they just launched a yield product. I'm not sure if we talked about it this live stream, but that's a game changer because people like BlackRock and MicroStrategy, they're just sitting on hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, just idle, not generating any yield. Imagine the yield that 500,000 Bitcoin that BlackRock's holding, or 500,000 Bitcoin that MicroStrategy's holding. How much yield that could generate for either reinvesting back into BTC or into other company ventures in order to grow the company. So I think institutions are going to adopt this Bitcoin yield product. Me and Mike were briefly talking offline about the yield that it brings, and 5% is crazy for a risk on asset like Bitcoin itself. So overall, just innovation and the speed in which they deliver.
Are you answering it next?
We can do yours next, and then do my last. So your question is, why are you bullish on the company as a whole?
We've got different questions.
We do.
Why am I bullish on the company? I think there's two types of companies in crypto. There are teams that get involved with the communities, and there are teams that don't get involved with the communities. And I'm not going to mention Mantra on here. I'm not going to mention JP because this is a stream about Maple, but he got involved when the time mattered. The difference between that and now is that the Maple team are out there. They're on X, they're on Telegram. You have the CEO of a company with $1.2 billion in TVL. You have the CEO answering questions in Telegram. You can go into Telegram right now and ask a question, and a member of the Maple Finance team will answer you. Now, that might not sound anything to you guys because maybe you deal with other projects that do the same things, but we're talking about a blue chip financial institution here. We're talking about a company with $1.2 billion in assets that will answer your questions face to face. You don't get that. It doesn't happen. You don't get that with Ondo. I don't see anybody from the Ondo team in Telegram, but I see every member of the Maple team. So I'm bullish on them because they face up to every question they get asked in Telegram. And that, for me, they're bad questions, they're good questions, they confuse people. They answer the question. So for me, having a team that involved is massively important. The only thing I worry about is how they scale their business. And again, only time will tell with that. Can they do it with the same team at 4 billion? Probably. Can they do the same thing with the team when it's at 10 billion? Probably. But that's my only concern. And that's something where they have to show how they can grow. As far as I'm concerned, the team being present is the reason why they will be a success.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
Yeah,
No, go on.
Briefly I spoke on how I got into crypto, all of that. My first RWA play was Goldfinch Finance, and I can tell you right here, the CEO was not in chat. The Discord was completely helpless. They didn't answer any questions, not at the scale that the Maple Telegram does. We have Gleb and Raj answer questions instantly. So you type a question and either Gleb or Martin or anyone is going to come in and answer it, which I think the team, if you're on this, thank you. Adding on to Micah, a Maple community team is unlike a lot of projects that we have in the space.
My question is, why am I bullish on the SIRP token? I will say, obviously, in the chart section, obviously, I did talk about the potential short-term, downwards movement we could, possibly have on SIRP. I think, again, I think my main, idea as I was coming into the chart was having, the knowledge of, okay, this token could just move completely external from the price action because of how different the coin is. It's not like it's just some coin which is being ran. It's just some independent entity. It actually has value being added to it consistently as we continue in the months and months and months. So it is definitely something which will definitely have that external movement outside of the charts. If I had to talk about it just based on the charts, I would say the weekly does look pretty good. Again, looking at the price action, like I said, the 4 hour wasn't too positive, but I think the weekly definitely has that positivity to it, especially that double visit near, I don't know exactly what price it was, towards 11 cents. I think it does have really good structure, and I do think we can see a lot higher than where we are right now. But again, my main point would definitely be on the outside of the chart rather than the inside. But there is definitely positivity on the weekly. But that's it for me. I don't want to keep on talking about the charts or anything like that. But I think we've reached the end of our questions. I think we've done really well. I think it's been a great ambassador talk. Again, do want to give huge thanks to you, Nikolai, for coming on to the stream and being a part of this.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me on.
One thing I'll say to you, Nikolai, is maybe next time what we'll do is we will pick maybe core and we'll look at the BTC product. So rather than trying to fit everything into an hour. Maybe next time in a month's time or whenever we do another one of these, or maybe we do an X Spaces or whatever, maybe we pick a product and we really take that product to pieces. So if you're willing to come back in a month or so's time, we would love to have you back. You've been a fantastic guest.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'd love to have a space and then go through, all the products in depth and, what they add to the market and like what type of investors can invest in what.
Sort something out off air. Do you want to do the outro, or do you want me to just say?
I'll kind of give you do it. I think you can do it.
Well, thank you to everybody in Binance. I think we've had something like 3,500 people in Binance, which is amazing. We've had, I don't know how many people have watched on YouTube. I haven't been keeping a track. Thank you to Kishan and Tariq and all the questions we were asked. We did ask a poll question: are you bullish on maple finance and syrup? 94% said yes. 6% of you said no. I cannot believe 6% of you said no. That's very disappointing. Anyway, thank you, Nikolai. Thank you, Oracle, for being an incredible host. Thank you to the audience. It's been great. We will see you in another Maple Finance stream in some way, shape, or form in the next month or so. And if you are watching Maple Team, don't stop working. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.